Alrighty then. Um, Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Mikestand, where all right. So, anyways, hopefully everybody's having a good week thus far. If you haven't already, if you can like and share the stream when you come in, that'd be appreciated. Also, if anything we talk about tonight grabs your attention, feel free to comment or ask questions. That's it. We're just waiting on some people. Waiting on some people to show up. So, alrighty then. Let's see. Walking in a town in a faceless crowd, I need to feel the touch of a friend. In the countryside, I wander far and wide. The isolation get me again. I don't know where to go when I feel like crying. Oh my, it's time to open myself. Do something new. I want to stop and grow up a bit. Then suddenly my intuition and my wisdom grow. And then I know that most of all, passionately, strangers wherever we go. Thank you for waking me up. All right, let's see. Alrighty then. So with that, okay. Let's see. On Moon Mesa, where the cowboys roam, everyone wanna go by the code of the West. On Moon Mesa, when the cowboys roam, everyone wanna go by the code of the West. He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. Mass Crusaders working overtime, fighting crime. Secret raiders who will neutralize the pillorize. Batrack is gonna lead the mission. Spectrum's got such supervision. Mass is a mighty power that can save the day. Mask. No one knows the lie behind the masquerade. Mask. No one knows the lie behind the masquerade. On his way. All right. Anyway, so now we're up at about 4.5 minutes here. So I guess it's a good time to go over what we'll be going over tonight. We'll be going over like 4 articles from Bounding into Comics. One in which Crunchyroll is deciding to take gendered language off of animes. We have a couple of stories revolving around Velma. That continual let's see. Let's see. Um, a couple of articles in regards to Velma, of course, one talking about Yellow Flash's coverage of it. As you guys know, I've been talking about that too. Also, the current Velma cast and creators are claiming that they were inspired by the love of both animation and the previous Scooby-Doo cartoons. But I think a lot of you, including you, Yellow Flash, myself, Dark, and a few others, have been calling BS on that. And also, we're gonna look at some commentary from Bruce Timm, one of the showrunners for, of course, the DCAU series. Batman. He's gonna talk about what makes him cringe about Batman Phantasm 30 years later. So those are the articles, and then of course we'll have our wrestling wrap up. We'll have, of course, our wrestling wrap up, among other things. Excuse me again. I gotta go check my dog. I'll be right back. As soon as I can. Hold on. All right. Excuse me a moment. about that. So let's see. I'm gonna try something one more time here. Just a second, folks. Go. Alrighty then, enough with the distractions, of course. Let's go ahead and start getting into some articles here. Um, so, Alright, so here we go. All right, so let's get into this then. All right. Let's see. Crunchyroll removes gendered language from English localization of Onimai. I'm Now Your Sister. Article by Nerdigans Inc. Published this past Friday in the anime censorship section. So, Crunchyroll's habit of licensing censored versions of anime has been under massive fire ever since their purchase of the since their purchase by the pro censorship Sony. But a recent edit by the streaming platform to the English subtitles for Onimai, I'm Now Your Sister, made has audiences more concerned than ever before. An adaptation of mangaka Neko Tofu's original work, Onimai, I'm Now Your Sister, follows the story of Mahiro Oyama, an anime-loving shut-in who, after being subjected to one of his scientifically inclined sister's experiments, wakes up to discover that he has been transformed into a middle school aged girl. Wow, okay. Almost sounds like it kind of, well, almost sounds, the dynamic almost sounds a little bit like the kind of the opposite of Dexter's Laboratory, where you had the scientist's brother being hounded by his not so smart sister. Ah, let's see. Since the discovery by fans, since its discovery by fans in the West, Omni-Mai has been the center of constant controversies, as its premise has led gender activists to falsely claim that the series is a transgender anime, while others have disingenuously labeled it as child porn due to its mere featuring of lowly characters. Oh, brother, yeah, of course they have. Sadly, the series' bad luck didn't end there. Upon its January 25th premiere on Crunchyroll, it was soon discovered that the streaming platform had bizarrely attempted to erase gendered language from Onimai's English subtitles. Oh boy, that's not good. Um, this was a case where a boy got turned into a girl by an experiment, not necessarily by surgery or anything like that, or that he even wanted to be turned into a girl. Um, um, this change, as shared by Twitter user at Iun Tue, um, was made to a scene in the series' second episode, Mahiro's Time of the Month, wherein Mahiro notices that her now sister is slowly beginning to adapt to her new situation. Or Mahira, all right? Quote, girl sitting posture, unquote, Mahira observes in the original Japanese, as per a fan translation, quote, you becoming more and more girly, unquote. Um, However, in Crunchyroll's version of the episode, Mahiro instead asserts, quote, "You even sit differently," unquote, before asking, quote, "You really gotten into the swing of things, huh?" Okay. In response to Iun Tue's initial call out, at Jonathan TFX1 confirmed that this gender neutral translation was seemingly exclusive to the English subtitled version of the episode. Crunchyroll sub uh, quote Crunchyroll subs Spanish like a girl Latino like a girl Latino like a girl English differently, he wrote. Spanish like a girl, Latino like a girl, English differently. Okay. Now it makes sense how that all was coming down. This change appears to have been the work of a translation team, which included at Tomoyo 0180, who on the day of Onimai's debut took to Twitter to brag that her assignment to the she was able to put their quote gamer knowledge to good use unquote. In butchering the series localization. Okay? Providing insight into their approach towards Onimai, Tomoyo 0810 explained on January 7th that in some instances, quote, deciding to avoid a one-to-one translation helped elevate my translations whilst retaining the intended meaning. Really? So you honestly believe that? So I guess they must have honestly believed that this was a transgendered anime. That's I think what the big complaint is here. So I always try to ask myself, what would I say in this situation? Unquote. They added in a now deleted follow up tweet, quote, now with this show, I'm like, what would I say as a fellow gamer? Inevitably, the localizer's intentional disregarding for Neko Tofu's original vision drew criticism from fans, particularly those who have grown tired of the West's self aggrandized attempts to quote unquote in smaller quotes improve foreign work. You know what I kind of wonder. We have heard some mangakas come out at times and say they don't produce. Some have said they don't care. For it. Others have said they're all right. But it would be interesting to see to hear more about what some of these creators, the manga creators who, the people who did the original work, the original source material. It'd be interesting to hear from them about a lot of this going on. Um, I'd be interested in hearing, of course. I'm sure a lot of you would too, probably. Anyways, let's see. Okay, in turn, Tomoyo 0180 responded to massive backlash unleashed against her by both doubling down on her work and insulting those who disagreed with her. Mm. Yeah, and I know that uh, Tomoyo is not the only one who's been getting, who's gotten Anna crack subtitle dude. Okay. Um, I know that Vera Dark is reported on another localizer who does a lot of the same things. So, anyways, quote, "What did you do today, kiddo?" Unquote. The translator asked, imitating a conversation between two individuals. Quote, "Oh, I was watching this anime, and the translator didn't translate a line the way I would have, so I went to find them on Twitter and left them a mean comment. Wow, I'm so proud of you." Oh boy. Adding even further fuel to the fire, Tomoyo 0810 would later admit to being a quote unquote newbie translator. Quote, question: how do you tend to translate sounds of exertion like, all right, etc.? At Tomoyo 0810 inquired. Quote, newbie translator looking for more ideas to add to my arsenal. In parentheses here, I tend to struggle with onomatopoeia since I've never been into English language comics. Ironic thing is that there actually was a villain with that name, Ono Onomatopoeia. Now, for those of you who don't know what that word means, it essentially means a word that is a sound effect. Okay, so when you hear a bang, it's bang, right? So pop, you know, um, slam, you know. In other words, sound effects. They're kind of those are what onomatopoeias are. Basically, um, they're they're basically words that are like the sound effects. It's like they're kind of self-identifiers. So let's see. Ultimately, at Tomoyo 0810 would declare that they were, quote, locking my account for a few days until the angry e-boys give up on harassing me, unquote. Well, maybe you should stick to the what the original intent of the source material is, and not try to put in your own little personal preference there. And I don't know. Basically, apparently their Twitter name here is Anna with some kind of little flower, I guess, cracked subtitle dude. I don't know if they're trying to say they're a transgender girl or what, but transgender woman, what have you. But anyways, following her eventual return to the public eye, so it's the transgendered woman, I guess. At Tomoyo 0180 okay, I think they misprinted it. I think it's supposed to be 0810. But would poke the bear one last time, admitting on January 17th, which was 1 week ago today, that, quote, the hilarious thing is even the so-called, in smaller quotes here, one-to-one translations I gave as examples, as seen above, aren't even one-to-one. Yeah, there's just that is just kind of like poking the bear. So there we go with that one. So let's see now. That is usually going to look, I did get another like. So thank you, whoever popped in and liked and shared. Hopefully, we can get some more people in here. All right. Before I go on to the next article, there is something I need to deal with here. So I'll get the next article set up, and I'll be right back. Oh, there we go. Okay, well, never mind. That I get fixed itself for the moment, at least. Anyways, alrighty then. So let's go ahead and move on to the next. Um, all right. So, anyways, let's go ahead and move on to the next article here. Actually, before I do that, as I said, I'm going to go ahead and take care of something real quick. I'll be right back. I'm going to go ahead and. I'm back, so let's go ahead and go ahead and get back into the article here then. All right, so YouTuber Yellow Flash shows media doing damage control for HBO Max's woke disaster Velma. Article by J.D. Augustine published yesterday. In the television. Now, of course we've been talking about Velma and Yellow Flash's coverage of her quite a bit since it came out. So, see what JD has to say about it here. Selma, the quote unquote inclusive Scooby-Doo reboot on HBO Max, is a critical disappointment, to put it mildly. Mildly? Yeah, I'd say a lot more than mildly. Let's see. That turning off viewers and reviewers left and right, quite literally, because as we know, even those on the left have been panning the show. But that hasn't stopped the media that approves of this kind of content that has no success or upside to show for itself from desperately finding positives to defend its existence. Uh-huh. Trying to shove their agenda down everybody's throat. That's a real positive thing to do, huh? All right. So, anyways, YouTuber and commenter. Well, I think the correct term is commentator, not commenter, but commentator. I think is be the more appropriate term. Yellow Flash demonstrated in a new video the ways sites like CBR are expounding on what they perceive Velma is doing right in the name of diversity. In a recent article, the site makes the claim the new Shaggy Norville is, quote, the best version of Shaggy, quote, ever. And it's kind of funny because, in his video on Velma today, apparently some of those are now starting to backtrack on that position. So, even the critics and even those who are trying to defend it are starting to realize that what a pile of garbage it is. So, quote, HBO Max's Velma is breaking stereotypes, pushing inclusivity and equality. It's giving fans the best Shaggy ever, unquote, it says. No, you're using an existing IP to push your agenda and nobody likes it. Period. Anyways, I should hurry along here. We're already at the 42-minute mark. All right. So, anyways, yeah, okay. Yellow Flash couldn't disagree more and responds that Norville comes off as a quote beta male wuss unquote who quote constantly pines over Velma unquote and quote always begs her for dates unquote. Overall, this Shaggy is a quote unquote loser, Flash says, and far from the best version is quote unquote awful. He adds, quote, with all the woke tropes, quote unquote, Velma is not breaking any kind of stereotypes realistically. If you think about it, if you really think about it, yeah, he's right there. They're not breaking stereotypes. If anything, they may be reinforcing stereotypes, or at least the stereotypes that the left seem to, um, by constantly using, some of those, I guess, within, some of those. Try something here. Maybe this will help. Let's see if that helps now. Hopefully. Hopefully that will help now. Okay, so hopefully that will solve that problem. Okay, let's see if that. Okay, let's see. CBR's take is no surprise, but there are others taking the defense of Velma to a bizarre level. A left wing conspiracy theory, for instance, admits the show is bad but claims the poor quality is due to a quote unquote right wing psyop. Really? Okay. According to this theory by a Forbes writer, the criticism is fake and people are covering up Mindy Kaling's closet conservatism, quote, or something, unquote, says Yellow. Okay. Yeah, that is kind of funny, isn't it? Somebody who's basically been trying to put out there that she's not a conservative. Yeah. I mean, Yellow. I mean, that does seem to be making a pretty decent point there, as it were. Anyways, let's get back to the article here. Some out there apparently think Velma is a setup done for the sake of making fun of woke people. Skeptical, Flash retorts, quote, I don't think so. I think these people just literally thought that this would be the funniest ever, and it's not. Um, as Rotten Tomatoes proves, critics and viewers weighed in and they attest to the series' unfunniness. Now, another little thing that's been thrown out there too, and I've talked about this a little bit too. I've kind of mentioned this too. Apparently, they initially tried this show with original characters. They tried, basically what they're doing in this show with original characters, and it apparently bombed. It just nobody wanted to see it. So they figured. So I'm guessing they figured they'd pull a bait and switch, put a real well-known and liked IP of Scooby Doo, or at least the characters from it, excluding Scooby themselves, of course, and and just get well, if we put these characters and Scooby Doo in there, and we kind of try to link it. We call it a Scooby Doo prequel. Maybe then people will watch it. We can shove our ideals down their throat. Real Scooby Doo fans are upset that their beloved franchise is being quote unquote scorched, which Flash sympathizes with. He explains that HBO Max and Mindy Kaling desecration of Scoob is another incident made possible by quote unquote the woke effect. Every franchise, quote unquote, anything of value will fall victim to Hollywood's DEI politics because they can't create anything original anymore. Scooby Doo is only the latest one. That said, the Guardian still asks if Velma actually is an insult to Scooby Doo. Yellow Flash answers yes emphatically. And I'm sure a lot of fans out there would be in a total agreement with Yellow Flash. Meanwhile, Out magazine vehemently defends Velma as the best show ever and can't believe the uproar against it. Now, mind you, Out magazine does have a bias. You know, my understanding is Out magazine is a magazine that is geared towards the LGBTQ plus community. So of course they would be ready to defend Velma, because it's something that promotes their ideology. You know, hell if anybody else likes it or not. Hell if anybody else really wants to watch it or not. Just as long as we can force it down your throats, that's okay. It's kind of the thing that people do not understand. Anyways, all right. So, anyways, as we continue on, possibly as a result of the muckraking sensationalism, an attempt to cancel Kaling over an improvised kiss with a male co-star she found attractive is garnering attention. The actor was Lee Pace, and the incident took place on an episode of her sitcom, The Mindy Project. Explaining to Conan O'Brien in 2016 what happened, she said, quote, he was just looming above me, um, and he asked me a question. I was not listening to him because who cares what he was saying? Oh boy. And I was just like, and then in brackets here, and kissed him. Okay. Kaling then threatened to fire anyone who spoke up, quote, and they're like, in small quote, hey man, what are you doing? You could be sued for that, in small quotes. And I got very scared and I said, in small quotes, tell anyone and you're fired, unquote. I think he might have been like, did it happen or did it not? So I just didn't need our side to confirm it or anything, unquote, she added. Yeah, maybe if they had spoken up, again, I'm reminded of an old saying that came out of World War II, about the idea of All right. Well, anyways, is it too late for Velma and having reached the dreaded point of no return? The time for Warner to come to their senses and cut bait on this universally panned series? Answer and share your yeah, I think definitely. Unless they want to give more, comic fodder for people like Flash or Yellow Flash, give us more content to laugh our rear ends off. I'm sure that's what you know. Um, uh, with that, we have one more article to go through. On action note, we have two more. I'm sorry, we had two Velma articles, so we get hit the first one of the two, and then two more articles. Anyways, so Velma, cast and creator, claim HBO Max series inspired by their love for both animation and previous Scooby Doo cartoons. Yeah, I don't think anybody in their right mind believes that. Um, Article by Spencer McCooley, published yesterday. So JB and Spencer had some stuff to say about this. Okay, let's see what Spencer has to say here. Having seemingly realized that bastardizing beloved IP and insulting your potential audience is not a winning strategy for endearing one's work to the public, the cast and creator of HBO Max's Velma have attempted to claim that their mean spirited take on Scooby Doo was born from their own love for both the original Mystery Gang and the medium of animation. I just realized something too as I'm looking at this. I think and I don't know if anybody else picked up on this either, but I think they made this Velma thicker, if you know what I mean. Maybe Flash has mentioned it before, but I get the impression it looks like they kind of. I don't think Velma was this quite this thick. If you get what I mean. So. The co-conspirators in the murder of Joe Ruby and Ken Spears, most beloved Hanna-Barbera creation, put forth their respective defenses during a recent interview regarding the series given to TV Insider. Yeah, I believe a few people were covered in this. Yellow Flash and Veridark um, were both covering this. Made at the interview's onset by the most embarrassingly gushing praise from TV insiders Damian Holbrook over how quote unquote joke packed each he found each episode of Velma to be. Series star Mindy Kaling opined, quote, I think that's something that we really loved about animated shows, unquote. Quote, Charlie and I are such huge fans, unquote, said the actress. What's so impressive about, um, in brackets here, series creator and regular Kaling collaborator Charlie Grandy and his staff is that to do a show that's that funny but also has a real mystery. There's a serial murder in the show is really impressive to pack into a half-hour show. From there, Holbrook raised the topic of the series race swapping Velma for from white to Indian, to which Kaling, who herself regularly promoted the show by boasting, um, let's see, about the orange sweatered sleuth's new heritage dismissed. Quote, it's interesting. Her identity is a big part of what people have been talking about before they've seen the show. But it's not a big part of her storytelling and her life. Well, it's because it's not her life. Okay, it's yours, Mindy. It's kind of like you kind of try to put lipstick on a pig. You know, it's exactly what this feels like. You try to put lipstick on a pig. You know, and nobody is buying it. Nobody is buying it. Um, quote: This is a character. She's so iconic, and the original series is so amazing, and we have a really diverse cast. But it's not a show that's sort of hinged on their identity. Unquote. She added. Likewise, Grandy himself tried to claim that, quote, it was a dream, unquote, to work on such a classic IP as Scooby Doo because, quote, the fun of an origin story is that, and there's a typo there, is that we all know where they end up. So it's about, quote, okay, where can we start them? Quote, then in terms of just sort of terms of the mystery, I always wanted to do a season long mystery. And so to kind of figure that out and work backwards and where you plant that information and how it can come out in a comedic series was difficult. But it's really, really fun, unquote, said the series creator. So that's the fun, the tension of it, unquote. He continued, quote, the characters all stem from the original idea. They're all so comfortable with each other. They're in a van all the time. They don't really bicker. So it's like, how do you get that comfortable with people? You have to go through just a lot of bleep to get to that point. So it's fun to show what that is. Well, no, because if you really did understand if you really did respect and understand the original source material, you would know that it was a kids show. It was a kids show. You twit. It was a kids show. It was basically it was meant for kids. Okay, you know, oh boy. Anyways, and look at this scene. This scene almost looks like they're in some. This is again some of the agenda pushing going on there in that scene right there. Ask next whether the script's overload of pop culture references and supposed smaller quote jokes were the result of the writing team's efforts or Kaling's own comedy stylings. The actress admitted, quote, I did zero improvisation. The scripts are just so tightly scripted, it didn't need it, unquote. Yeah, there was no improvisation because they're basically trying to just push their agenda with the beloved IP. So, what I love about the character is that she has these razor sharp feminist observations about being a young woman in that way, where you're like, well, I wish I could have been or said that thing or encapsulated the moment like she did or Daphne did or some of the other female characters, feeling opined. Oh, but it's all Charlie and his staff. Mhm. And I just have to say, the coloring on this animation is ugly. My opinion, you know, like your backhand, we all have one. So, um, something my dad used to say. Oh yeah. Anyways, getting back to the getting back to the article here. Honoring his own thoughts on stepping into the shoes of such an iconic character, Norville, voice actor Sam Richardson recalled to Holbrook, quote, I just love Scooby Doo and I loved all the characters so much. I grew up watching them, unquote. So what was wrong with just being a guy who just loved his dog, in a way you should love a dog and having the munchies? What was wrong with that? Why try to go this other route? Quote, I know fans love to have problems with things, so I was excited to get into that. Well, of course, fans are gonna have problems with it because you're not being true to the original material, you ding dong. And I'm speaking to, of course, Sam Richardson here, not my fans. Those who might think I'm just yelling at people, but I'm talking to the people. I'm talking to people making these quotes, basically, just so you know. He joked, making reference to how he was playing in his words, quote, a sober black Shaggy. I- Now I know that I've talked about this before, and I've mentioned this in some of my classes and common clothes actually, where I mentioned it. I think a lot of people don't really realize where they got the whole idea to call him Shaggy from. I believe, from what I remember hearing over the years, I believe that the idea was he was called Shaggy because of the scruff on his chin there. You know, I mean, if you remember seeing it, if you remember some of the classic studios like '69, Scooby Where Are You, and the new Scooby Shaggy had some scruff there. You know, they kind of make it look a little nicer here or try to make it like their dad. But Shaggy had the scrub, and that's why we call Shaggy, because he's like a Shaggy dog, you know. Um, well, not that Shaggy wasn't. You get like, well, you should, and if you don't, then you must be woke to it. Anyway, yet despite this supposed love for the original team and their adventures, an anecdote given by Fred voice actor Glenn Howerton would suggest otherwise. Speaking to his approach towards voicing the butt of the series, tired, um, tired white people, um, the series tired, in smaller quotes, white people bad line of humor. The It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia co-creator explained that he sought, quote, wanted to make him a little more immature, a little more petulant, sound like more like a high school kid. Well, okay, here's the thing. There's been a lot of some discussion since this whole series came out. There's been a lot of talk about this over the years too. Just when Scooby Doo and the gang first came to television series. Hold on a sec. I'm gonna need to go off for a moment. I'll be right back. All right. So, anyways, I was afraid I was gonna start I was about to sneeze, but that's why I went off camera. Just if you were wondering. All right. So with that, let's get back to the article here. And of course, if anything catches your attention, feel free to comment or ask questions. I'll answer the questions best I can. Let's see. Yeah. Going back to what I was getting ready to say here on Fred. Okay, so it was perceived that possibly they were teenagers or more likely young adults. In the original series. Maybe like 18 to 20 something year olds, or maybe because obviously well, they could have been as young as 16, because I think even in most states, depending upon where you were, you could get driver's license as young as 16. Um, they were probably most likely young adults in the series, so this was meant to be back in high school. But if you remember, the way Fred Jones is always perceived, and throughout much of the Scooby Doo franchise, he was the leader of the team. He was smart. He was, you know, you go to the more, and even the pup named Scooby Doo, um, to draw kind of a comparison, Fred was the preppy. Okay, he's probably the preppy, maybe with some athletic skill. He was to. I guess you would say that Fred was to Scooby Doo what, let's say, Zach Morris was to maybe what Zach Morris and maybe a little bit of AC Slater in there with some of the athletic ability. What Zach Morris and AC Slater were to Saved by the Bell. Okay. Just let me just draw some comparisons. So if you think about it, if you really think about it here, so let's go over the characters and how they were originally, I guess envisioned. Okay, in the series. And I'm gonna use Saved by the Bell because I think that will help us understand what they might have been like in high school. So Freddie, as I was saying, probably the cross between Zach and Slater from Saved by the Bell. He had a lot of the preppy aspects of Zach, but with some of the athletic ability of Slater. Daphne was probably most likely a combination of Kelly and Kelly Kabowski and Lisa Turtle. Basically, she was the more girly girl of the group. She was, I could see, Downey being the the cheerleader in high school, and even as depicted in A Pup Named School, do with Kelly Martin doing her voice in that series. Daphne was also, you tell, came from kind of more of a fluent background. So and she probably did have some of the shopaholic in her, like Lisa Turtle. So to draw the comparison, you could say that Daphne was to Scooby Doo what Kelly and Lisa were to Saved by the Bell. Velma was probably kind of a shorter version of Jessie, kind of the smart one of the team, the one who usually would, along with Fred, of course, who was pretty smart himself, would usually be the one helping, doing a lot of the leg work on the brain side of it, on figuring stuff out. And then Shaggy was probably, to Scooby Doo what Screech was to Saved by the Bell, But instead of being a nerd, he was more like just a very, very hungry, hyper guy, So just to kind of draw some comparisons to help people understand where the characters probably were in the grand scheme of things, that people will reference maybe some references that they better understand and what they're being depicted here. Anyways, let's get back to the article. I know that I've been YouTube's being stingy tonight, real stingy, and it's getting on my nerves. It's been getting on my nerves. But let me try to get through this. Let's see. All right, so let's move on with the article then. Quote, the way I interpreted the character was completely driven by the scripts that I got handed, unquote, said Howerton. So he even admitting going off of the idea that, he was more into helping them feed the narrative. Quote, what do they seem to be going for here? Let me lean into that, in smaller quotes. He's clearly an entitled, petulant kid who's somewhat clueless. Everyone described him almost like in smaller quotes, innocent bully, which Fred never was. Fred was never petulant. Fred, if those who know the material know that Fred was never petulant. He was never an innocent bully. Okay? That's just the way they wanted to perceive him here, to where, again, it's the whole all white people bad, scenario. Quote, he's like a bully, but he's completely unaware of how offensive the things are that he's saying, unquote. Further, described the actor, quote, in his mind, He's super nice, and he says and does awful things, so that was a funny thing to lean into. Of course it was. New episodes of Velma can be caught every Thursday on HBO Max. All right, so we're through that. So yeah, so they're trying to do damage control. We've seen that, um, and it's just not working. In fact, what I can tell you just from what I saw, earlier, obviously, um, what I saw earlier, um, including from Yellow Flash's coverage. Velma, of course, as everybody knows, Velma is has become known as the lowest rated show in IMDb history, and it is like the third lowest rated show ever on Rotten Tomatoes. Yellow Flash has been covering that a bit. Anyways, let's move on a bit here. I just want to try to get this finished because I'm getting frustrated with YouTube here. So, all right, so I'm going to try to breeze through this. Bruce Timm explains what makes him, in quote, cringe about, in smaller quote, Batman Mask of the Phantasm, on smaller quote, 30 years later. Article by J.B. Augustine published earlier today. Let's see, 2023 marks the 30th anniversary of one of the best Batman movies in any medium, Mask of the Phantasm. An unexpected theatrical release, the film had limited success in that run, but still managed to win over critics and fans and practically spawned the cinematic DC animated universe that was to come in the new millennium. The DCAU continues today, and Batman is naturally the highlight of it, but that doesn't mean that there weren't issues making such a benchmark. Bruce Timm, producer of the animated series and co-director of the feature, remembers what it was like to get the demand for release in theaters from Warner Brothers abruptly while he was taking part in a meeting in Japan. Quote, in brackets, co-producer and co-director, unbracketed, Eric Radomski and I were in Japan, meeting with one of the animation studios that worked on the movie, unquote, Timm said in an Empire interview via CBR. Quote, we got the word that the studio, in brackets, officially wanted to make it a theatrical release while we were literally handing out the storyboards to the animators. They were prepared for the film to air on TV as part of the series, so the aspect ratio became a problem, he explained. It had all been formatted for the old school TV ratio, which was practically a square. It was like, quote, in smaller quotes, what the heck are we going to do, unquote, Timm added. They figured it out, but to this day, he isn't pleased. When Timm watches Mask of the Phantasm, he notices things others do not and mentally cringes. Quote, when I see it, I just cringe, unquote. He confessed, although he believes the film's quality is almost there. Quote, it's like 90% there. I just wish I had the last 10%, unquote. For most fans, however, the film is totally, quote unquote, there as the greatest Batman movie ever made. And you see the picture here of Bruce and Alfred, who during the years of the DCAU were voiced respectively by the late Kevin Conroy and the late Efren Zimbalist Jr. Efren Zimbalist Jr., whose last role as Alfred was in the Justice League episode Star-Crossed Part 3. So, they're both probably in heaven right now looking down on all this. Originally considering a feature set in Arkham that became the ensemble episode Trial, quote unquote, Tim Radomski, Paul Dini, and Alan Burnett decided instead to retell a phase of Batman's origin and give him a love interest, which hadn't been done before on the small screen. That love was Andrea Beaumont, voiced by Dana Delaney, who has a past as tragic as Bruce's. Now, Dana Delaney, of course, obviously quite a bit involved with the DCAU. She, of course, was the voice of Lois Lane in the DCAU, Superman's love interest. And if you guys remember the episode World's Finest, had a short fling with Bruce. So there you go there. And then, of course, she, made appearances in Justice League as well. Batman, Mask of the Phantasm cost $6 million to make, and the team only had 8 months to complete and ready it for theaters. Released on Christmas in 1993 and raking in just $5 million, the film didn't recoup its budget. It did, however, become a favorite on home video with multiple releases over the years, including a remastered Blu-ray edition in 2017. How does the film hold up for you? Tell us. Yeah, it was a pretty good film, and in fact, they even touched upon it later in Justice League Unlimited in the episode epilogue too, which I rewatched. So, all right, so that's all of the articles we're going to cover tonight. I'm going to try to go a little bit quicker here because I just want to get done with this. Because YouTube is getting on my nerves. All right. So, anyways, as we start to wind down here, so some quick wrestling news. Of course, after last night's Raw, there's now talk that Brock. It looks like they're setting up a possible Brock versus Bobby Lashley match at WrestleMania. Let's see. There were some mic problems on last night's Raw as well. Let's see what we have. Let me just go over the results from last night. Last night's Raw result, which was the go home. Now, as I told you last night, originally they were going to do an acknowledgement ceremony for the bloodline, particularly with the Inoue family, but apparently Alpha, Sika, and Rikishi were not able to attend, and that's why they had to. That's why they switched it up to the trial of Sami Zayn angle that they were playing up there. So, let's look at what the Raw results from last night were for those who might be interested. And of course, Jerry Lawler returned for commentary last night on there. The Usos retained the Raw Tag Team titles over Judgment Day. Seth Rollins and the Street Profits defeated Imperium, the six-man tag. Bianca Bianca Belair defeated Sonya Deville in a match that was apparently pretty pine. And Austin Theory retained the United States Championship over Bobby Lashley. What I understand, I think Brock Lesnar interfered in that match, which is supposedly going to lead into a match between them, possibly at WrestleMania. So going from last night to what's going to be happening tomorrow night on Dynamite, All Elite Wrestling. I'll go over that real quick. So coming up on tomorrow night's Dynamite, well, he did talk about at least one of the matches, which is Bryan Danielson continuing his trek to remain number one contender, or through February 8th, so he can get a 60-minute Iron Man match for the AEW World Title against MJF. Essentially put a bounty on his head and hoping that Brian Cage will. So tomorrow night, Bryan Danielson will be taking on Brian Cage, as Brian Cage proves to be Danielson's next step towards remaining undefeated and becoming a number one contender. It's going to be interesting because Cage has been getting pushed a bit late too on the mid card level. Of course, he's 1/3 of the current Ring of Honor World Six-Man Tag Champions as well. Prince Nana in his corner. In a Jay Briscoe tribute match, Jay Lethal will be taking on Mark Briscoe. As some of you heard last week, Jay Briscoe passed away from injuries sustained in a car accident. The team known as Jungle Hook, Jungle Jack Perry and Hook, take on Ethan Page and Matt Hardy after some things had happened on Dynamite last week. In a match between Ethan Page and Jack Perry, I believe. As I mentioned before, it's Chris Jericho and Sammy Guevara of the Jericho Appreciation Society are going to be taking on Action Andretti and Ricky Starks. In a three-way match, Ruby Soho will be taking on Tony Storm and Dr. Britt Baker, DMD. And then the Darby Allin, another open challenge, will be defending the TNT title against Buddy Matthews. So there we go with that. Let's see now. So before we head out, before we head out, of course, today is Tuesday, January 24th. Today is Tuesday, January 24th, 2023. Let's take a look back at this day in Nietzsche history. History! So let me just go over this real quick. All right. So with that being said, let's take a look back at this day in Nietzsche history. First off, I want to wish a happy birthday to English actor and singer Michael Des Barres. Now, of course, that name's been around quite a bit over the years. I would like to wish him a happy 75th birthday. As in the world of animation, of course, he provided the voice of Kano in Mortal Kombat: Defenders of the Realm. Also provided the voice of Nostromos in the Batman the Animated Series episode Prophecy of Doom, which we were talking about a little bit earlier. And he also provided the voice of the Man in the Hole, the Freakazoid episode Sewer Rescue. So, happy 75th birthday to English actor and singer Michael Des Barres. Moving on to the next piece of Nietzsche history. All right. All right. So, anyways, heading back 60 years ago today, back in 1963, um, Lou Thesz defeated Nature Boy Buddy Rogers for the NWA World Heavyweight Championship in Toronto. Um, Now, this particular title change was probably considered one of the most controversial in history. First off, it was in a one fall match. Um, when back in those days, heavyweight championship matches were, particular world heavyweight championship matches were best of three. Plus, this is the schism that led to the creation of the Worldwide Wrestling Federation. So this is basically what was happening. Um, Buddy Rogers was the NWA World Heavyweight Championship around this time. And now, as per the rules back then, of course, the champion had to put up a $25,000 bond to make sure that when the board decided that it was time to, the belt change hands, that the champion, the person, whoever was holding it, would return the belt. Um, that was kind of the insurance guarantee that they'd return the belt. And it was basically considered also that the world champion didn't necessarily have a home territory. In other words, the world champion was to go around to all the different territories and defend the belt. He might spend a month or two in like what was known at this time as Capital Wrestling, and move down south to like the Mid Atlantic area and defended in Jim Crockett Promotions, and then maybe go down to Georgia, for All Sport and all of that, But the promoters in the Northeast, Vince McMahon Sr., Toots Mont, Willie Glintenberg, didn't want him going all over the place. They just wanted him to stay in the Northeast. NWA was not happy about that. Now, Rogers, despite the Northeast promoters not wanting him to do so, had agreed to drop the title back to Thesz because he did not want to lose the $25,000. Did not want to lose that retainer. This is again this is what led Capital Wrestling Corporation to initially sever ties with the National Wrestling Alliance and become what was back then the Worldwide Wrestling Federation, what we know today as the World Wrestling Entertainment. Vince McMahon Sr., of course, was the Vince we know's father. So it was this title switch, and also by winning back the World Heavyweight title, he had to give up the NWA International Heavyweight title, which made Riki Dozan the lone claimant to the international title, the one that was recognized in Japan Pro Wrestling Alliance, JPWA or JWA. So on this date back 60 years ago today, Lou Thesz would defeat Buddy Rogers in a one fall to none to become the new NWA World Heavyweight Champion. This is also what led to the creation of what we know of today as the World Wrestling Entertainment, known back then as the Worldwide Wrestling Federation. So, all right, so with that, let's see now. And one last piece of niche history to get through, which happened just 5 years ago today. So on this date, 5 years ago today, the 10th issue of Black Magic from Image Comics, a comic that ran for 16 issues, so a little over a year, went on sale on this date back 5 years ago today, 2018. Sold for $3.99, 28 pages. Story was Awakening 2, part 5 of the Awakening 2 storyline, written by Greg Rucka, with penciled by Nicola Scott and Jody Wynn doing the lettering. So on this date, 5 years ago today, the 10th issue of Black Magic went on sale from Image Comics on this date. So with that, guys, I thank you all for being here tonight. YouTube was being a little stingy tonight, so I was a little more distracted than usual. Sorry about that. But I hope to see everybody back here tomorrow for more niche news. Also, don't don't forget this Friday, Rick Piper will be joining me as we continue our look at comics history. Looking back to August of 1939, in which will be, of course, going over comics that went on sale from Centaur and David McKay. So with that, guys, I thank you all for being here. I hope to see everybody back here tomorrow. Bye.